I saw a Wubbzy episode last night that affected my mental state. The best way I can describe it is otherworldly. Like something was trying to get in my head and say something. Whenever the show was scheduled to come on, that was the only episode that showed up for whatever reason. It was nowhere near the length of an average rerun either. In fact, it was really short, around 5 or 6 minutes. I showed my roommate what I saw to his face, and he called me a nutcase. I snapped a photo of it to see if my friends believed me, but the picture somehow came up looking like it was from a normal episode. Telling them got me nowhere too, as they kept saying that the episode was non-existent. I'm not as fucking idiotic as they think I am, but I know what I saw, and I know it's going to have me killed. I don't know when or how. It could happen at the end of what I'm typing right now. But before that happens, I have to spread a warning. The start of the episode, if you could even call it that, had Wubbzy's alarm clock right next to his bed after it stopped. I thought the intro was going to play like always, but instead I was greeted with nothing but a muffled tweeting of birds outside of his window. When he left his bed, he looked bored out of his mind, like he had been sitting through a long game of chess. Wubbzy said absolutely nothing. In fact, he didn't even speak through the entire episode at all. The most he ever did was express his emotions through action, but I'll get to that later. He walked over to the slide leading below his room, and then the camera panned to his face with the background unfocused. His tail suddenly fell limp and began slithering up his body, curling around his torso like a snake. I heard whispers as the yellow gerbil dude simply stood there, immobile. The whispers were all bunched together, and I couldn't make out entirely, but I do remember one of the voices saying something about discipline. It then cuts to Wubbzy walking out of his treehouse and passing 3 of his friends at a playground, Huggy, Buggy, and Earl. They'd say hello to him, but they garnered no response, and the gerbil just kept walking, as if they were nothing but a mist. They were confused, but they shrugged it off and kept enjoying themselves. Honestly, this part felt awfully familiar. It reminded me of how I was back in elementary, with being ignored when I was upset and whatnot. I didn't even remember their names, but somehow the memories came flying back, and I didn't know why. Wubbzy makes his way over to Widget's workshop. As seen in a faraway view, he walks inside while his friend is working on something, but it wasn't shown, so I have no idea what it was. It didn't seem to be important by the time everything was done, though. Behind Widget's back, he began to search through her toolbox, carefully placing each tool he pulled out in a pile next to his feet upon hearing the rustling noise as Widget approached him. Little buddy? If you wanted to borrow something, you could have just asked me. Just like with the 3 kids at the playground, Wubbzy still didn't respond, like he was purposely ignoring everyone in his path for whatever reason. Were they not worth the time? Did he have something planned? He pulled out what seemed to be a tension wrench before tossing it behind his back and catching it with his tail. He then walked away to where the entrance was. Seeing as her close friend barged in and took something that didn't belong to him, Widget raced to the entrance to get Wubbzy's attention, trying to be as kind as possible. Hey, wait a minute! I need that tension wrench for my... Wait. Where do you even need that anyway? Once she said this, Wubbzy turns around and gives Widget a glare. His eyes squinted. He had this uncharacteristically rancid scowl on his face, which made his friend back up upon seeing it. Before spitting in her face like a rude prick and going somewhere else, he spoke to Widget. Wubbzy didn't even sound like himself at all. He sounded quiet and adult-like. Get lost, or you'll face the music alongside them. This instance reminded me of someone from my childhood as well for some reason. My mother was always focused on her work more than me, and she barely talked to anyone because of it. She wasn't exactly a mechanic like Widget was, but the more I watched, the more the message burrowed into me like a maggot. We then cut to Wubbzy walking into Walden's library looking for something. He sighs as he pulls out book by book, getting more irritated every time he can't find what he was looking for. He tossed each book that he didn't want behind his back. Walden notices and speaks to him. Wubbzy, what are you doing? This isn't just a library, it's an archive. You need to be more careful. Wait, where are you going? Walden waves his arms around trying to get Wubbzy's attention, but to no avail. The only response he got was Wubbzy's footsteps sauntering out of his entrance doorway as if he wasn't a big deal. Before he left, I noticed he had a book in his hand, but I didn't know what it was for or what it was about. No, this was getting too personal. Walden's behavior reminded me too much of my father's affair. To put it simply, my mother was cheated on. The lady my father committed adultery with ran a library. She always told me that I will pay for the book if I lose it before leaving the place. I'm scared. Finally, he showed up to Daisy's house. Wubbzy rang her doorbell and waited patiently. The door would open, and there she was greeting the yellow gerbil with a happy smile. Well, good morning, Wubbzy. I'm having a tea party if you would like to join. Wubbzy shoved Daisy out of the way, not even saying a word. It wasn't even a simple shove either. He literally grabbed the poor girl by her dress and tossed her by the side like a toy. He began searching through her drawers and shelves for a few seconds as Daisy watched. She looked like she was about to get up, but stayed down anyway, in fear of getting herself hurt. After pulling out a box of matches from one of Daisy's drawers, he made his way over to her. And forcibly plucked a few things out of her hair. The girl yelped with each tug, and then opened her eyes to see what Wubbzy pulled out. Her hairpins. Around 4 to be exact. Her hair was then let down in a straight yet messy formation. Just as she was about to scold Wubbzy and ask why he did that to her, he left, not even saying a word like how he was at Walden's. Daisy reminded me of a girl from my class in fucking junior high. Someone who was quite an overly ecstatic and annoying bitch. But I forgot about her entirely because she wasn't worth my time. What kind of a wake-up call was this? That also begged the question, why did Wubbzy speak to Widget and show the most emotion to her? But he didn't do it to anyone else. We then fade to a night setting with shots of Walden, Widget, and Daisy all in their homes trying to sleep, but continuously tossing and turning from how rude their good friend was to them. After some time of trying to sleep and failing, they all mutually decided that they had enough. Altogether, they angrily stormed out of their houses. They marched over to Wubbzy's treehouse and meet up at the entrance. Widget was the first to speak up. Did he take something from you too? Yes, Walden remarked. And I'm not going to let him get away scot-free. He tore through my library looking for something and didn't even apologize. Daisy growled. Lavender lollipops? That's nothing. Look at my hair. After a few seconds of bickering, Widget ends the struggle by knocking on Wubbzy's door. She calls out to him at the top of her voice, but instead of getting a more vocal response, the door creaks open. Nothing opened it from the inside. The trio was confused, but they stepped inside looking for Wubbzy anyway, as they are pretty hell-bent on giving him a piece of their mind. It didn't take them long to find him, though. In fact, he was at the bottom floor, right next to a slide, still holding the tools in a slouched position. He was facing away from them, and Daisy tried to get his attention. No response. She barked his name once again. Still nothing. Widget rolled her eyes and stomped over to him before gripping onto his shoulder. "I don't have time for this. It's 1 in the Turning Wubbzy to her view greeted her too in a natural sight. His mouth was invisible and his eyes were now replaced with hollow caves like the holes you'd find in trees. The glimpse made Widget back up in fright, and the gerbil let go of the tools he held, all of them landing with a grouped thud. "Wubster?" Wubbzy stared into space as his 3 friends were having trouble staying calm. Was Wubbzy dead, alive, or somehow neither? They couldn't tell without warning. Another semicircular hole formed in his face, acting like as his new mouth. Waterfalls upon waterfalls of blue poured out of him and onto the floor, quickly flooding his home. His friends ran off, and the episode ended right as the water reached up to his torso. I took the time to pause and draw a visual aid of what I had witnessed, since my camera apparently won't give me what I want. After finishing the sketch, whispers plagued me, begging me to come to a realization of sorts, begging me to bring discipline. I somehow remembered everything about everyone I've ever met, but I have a strange focus on specific people. A small, fixed amount. I am going to set my childhood home ablaze from the inside tonight, and spend my last moments getting a good glimpse of how it all started before I go to the lake out back. Something is trying to make me bring balance to people's lives, as it keeps telling me through the cascade of hushed murmurs. But before I do that, just remember this. It comes once a year to choose a punisher.